And then he said,
"Hi, this is Wine Chat. I'm Jace,
"Hey, I'm Chris."
and we're gonna talk about what we think might be the most important thing you need to know to buy wine.
The secrets, the hard facts, what you really need to
Heavy
walk
stuff.
in to the wine shop or grocery store prepared with, the knowledge you need.
Yeah. First, I'd suggest you get a copy of the Oxford Companion to Wine, and start with A, and then
Snorefest.
try to. Okay, right. So it's not going to be that complicated, nor is it really going to be all that secret. The trick. Do you know what it is? What's the number one?
It's location.
That's real estate.
What? But if it came from Napa, it's got to be good, right?
Well, we will explore very briefly that just because it's from Napa doesn't make it drinkable, even sometimes, but it certainly doesn't make it exceptional. Because Napa is still a fairly big place. Like most wine regions. Most wine regions are actually the ones you know. It's because they're big and they produce lots of wine. And it's not vintage, right? I mean, everybody comes in looking for vintages. That's been my experience. Oh, I heard '05 was a great vintage, and you know, I'm sure one of your favorites too. I heard '05 was a great vintage, and you say where? And that's okay. You don't need to know vintages. Vintages is like, it's minutia kind of stuff. This shouldn't really be a great place to start, and it's not the most important thing.
Well, then what is?
Well, we're not done with what it's not yet.
Oh.
It's not grape variety either.
Oh.
So even if you know, okay, you like Cabernet, you like Merlot, that's valid, but it doesn't mean you're going to like all of them. So what do we have left?
Label.
Kinda. Yeah, it's producer. It's who made the wine, or who contracted the making of the wine, or in some cases, who picked the wine out of Europe to bring in. It's producer, producer, producer. Those are your first three most important things when you're looking at wine. And it, for some reason, seems to be something that people don't really pay that much attention to. And so we're going to hope to change that. So why is producer important?
The producer is the person who makes the hard decisions throughout the winemaking process about how it's going to end up, the final product, the stuff that you're going to get once you buy your bottle.
And even if they're not out in the fields picking the grapes at optimum ripeness, even if they're not actually making the wine, they decide who to hire to make the wine. Ultimately, it's their name that goes on the label, front or back. And generally, you can find some kind of a house style, some consistency in a range from a single producer, no matter how big that producer is, or even if they're real small. And the same can be said for an importer.
Even the best grapes grown in some of the most prominent wine regions in the world can still turn out crap.
Yeah, even in the best vintage. Winemaking is almost more about not destroying the wine. And there are little tricks you can use if your wine didn't come out, just perfect. You add a little sugar in where you're allowed to. You add a little acid. You do things to flatter the wine, but ultimately you've got what you've got to work with. But you can still be handed gold and turn it to crap. And that's entirely subjective. One man's crap is another man's gold, and we don't agree on all wines. You shouldn't agree with us. You probably don't, and that's okay. But the important thing is to find producers that you like. Now, we're not suggesting that you should just stick with something. If you like Beringer, then we're not suggesting you only drink Beringer products. You should play around. But on the other hand, if you've had 2 or 3 wines from a producer and you didn't like them, might be time to find a new producer.
And at the same time, just because you've bought some Zins from one guy and you've tried them and you never liked them doesn't mean you don't like Zin. Probably means you just don't like the Zin that guy's making.
Yeah, and there are going to be lots of other alternatives. But what we're talking about is producer, and sometimes this can be a little tricky to find on the label. Now, an example I have of somebody who I think we agree is a pretty good producer, Sprague, not a terribly large producer, not tiny, but Ed Sprague was a winemaker for Beringer, made their Beringer Reserve wines, I believe still does. And this is his family estate. In this case, all of his wines really are going to come from the same place, and he's, of course, the winemaker. But I'm willing to trust what he's doing. If I like the Cabernet, and I do, I'm going to try the Sauvignon Blanc. Even though it's a completely different thing.
Wait a minute. But Sauvignon Blanc's a white wine, Cabernet's a red wine.
Right, and maybe I've had a couple Sauvignon Blancs I don't like, but I like his winemaking. And I'm going to trust him to make a Sauvignon Blanc that tastes pretty good. And this is a good philosophy. If you want to try different things, but you're a little afraid, you don't know where to go, well, find a producer you like. And if you like their Merlot, you might like their Syrah. You might like their white wines. It's a pretty safe bet because they're making something that's pleasing to your palate. It's probably pleasing to theirs. You have similar tastes. But it's not always that easy as finding it on the front label. Sometimes you got to turn it around. Here we have B-side Cabernet, and it's got a really cool label, and I'm excited to see it on the shelves, but if I turn it around, I see that it's made by Don Sebastiani and Sons. Now, maybe one time I had a Don Sebastiani wine that I thought was okay, but it would be completely overshadowed by a lot of them that I've had that were pretty awful. I think you'd concur there.
Yeah, big box wine. I mean, this is just like the churned out by the thousands and thousands of gallons kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's not big that makes it bad necessarily. There are good wines made in quantity, but this isn't one of them. To me, this is overly rich. It's not a wine drinker's wine. It's kind of flat. But your mileage may vary, and you may really love that style of wine. Certainly, they sell a lot of wine. Somebody likes it. But I know at this point, I've had a few bad ones. I'm not going to buy any more Don Sebastiani wine. So there you go. I had to look on the back label to find out. Unfortunately, when I bought this wine, I didn't. I made that mistake, and I didn't care for the wine. I looked at the back label and go, oh, yeah, of course. So, importer, you will also find on the back label. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, check it out. It's usually right on the back somewhere in the finer print. This happens to be a wine from Kermit Lynch. Kermit Lynch is an importer that we both like quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
We find that Kermit Lynch makes some really solid stuff, and we know and trust that when we see his name on the back label, that we're going to get a product that we think is of good quality.
Yeah, he's made a reputation as a good importer. He makes good selections. The wines are interesting. They have character. We could, go on and on about Kermit Lynch, but the point is we found an importer we like, and there are a lot of other importers we like. So you might want to look at the same. If you're buying European wines, if you're buying Australian wines, look for an importer that means something to you. If you liked a couple of them, you might be surprised to find that they're the same person. So where does this leave us? Where can we buy wines from producers or importers we like?
Well, first, I'd suggest you get out of the grocery store and you get into a reputable wine shop.
Right, and this isn't, and of course we're biased. We're wine retail. This is what we do. So we're always going to say something to that effect. But the reason being here, if you look, there's a lot of labels at the grocery store. But a lot of times they're really only a handful of producers and importers. They're all the same guys, just a lot of different labels. Don Sebastiani and Sons, for example, has 2 different child companies that produce all kinds of stuff, and it may fill 3 shelves at your grocery store. So by the same hand, there might be a great producer who has 3 shelves, but you're only dealing with a limited number of options. And for that reason alone, it's probably better to, reach outside a little bit, go to a reputable wine shop, or online at internetwines.com. Ask somebody but whatever, just try some different stuff and pay more attention. You might really be surprised a lot of the stuff you've been drinking is all from the same handful of people. And they're going to taste pretty similar. So, number 1 secret to buying wine. It wasn't real jazzy, but
read the label.
Read the label,
Get
yeah.
out there. Don't just look at it and say, hey, that's kind of cute. Actually turn it around. Take a look at it. It's going to help you improve what you know about wine.
There are a lot of other wine buying tips that we'll cover in the future, but try this one out for a few weeks. See how it works for you. See what you find. And until next time, this has been Wine Chat.
Salute.
Salute.